What do you reckon is the best version of Cyclops we've had?
Scott Marsden, just because he's never stopped being fucked over. Like, Superman stole his girl. How bad's that? At first glance, and no, I'm not going to apologise for that pun, the superhero Cyclops' powers seem to work in a fairly straightforward manner. However, according to the comics, the way Cyclops' powers function is a little more, shall I say, unusual.
So how do Cyclops' powers work? I was under the impression it was just a laser.
Yeah, a lot of people think that he just fires lasers out of his eyes. And for the first 2 decades the character existed, that was the explanation. It was that Cyclops' powers work, that he absorbs ambient radiation from the environment, largely solar radiation, which he then metabolizes inside his body and just expels as a beam of pure fucking energy from his eyeballs. That's apparently not how it works. Even though his eye beams function like lasers and people call them lasers, they're not lasers.
So it was initially a solar beam?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And apparently that explanation was too stupid, even though it sounds hilarious. Because someone being a giant solar battery is actually a pretty cool idea for a hero, because that's how Superman works.
I was just thinking
like,
that.
Superman's, maybe that's why they changed it, I don't know, but for the first 2 decades Cyclops existed, said, oh, his powers, he metabolizes ambient radiation, which he then releases from his eyeballs.
So if his eyes aren't firing lasers, what are they firing?
They are firing energy from a non-Einsteinian universe.
Because that's way less stupid.
Yeah, I think in one of the comics, they retconned it 20 years later. Said, no, he doesn't absorb ambient radiation. His eyes are a portal to a universe filled with apparently a limitless amount of this weird energy that fires out of his eyes. I'm not making this up, this is how Cyclops' powers work. His eyes are portals to another dimension.
Is it specifically just his eyeballs though? Like if you took out the middle of his nose, would he fire it in a straight
We don't
line?
know. It's apparently just his eyeballs act as a portal to this dimension. And I think it's variously established it's trauma that stops him from being able to turn off the power. So that's why he has to wear the ruby quartz visor over his eyes, because the only things in the known universe able to stop this energy are Cyclops' own body, which is why his eyelids can stop it, his brother, because his brother's powers don't work on him, and vice versa, and ruby quartz. And I always wonder why, that makes sense, but sometimes in those movies he's wearing glasses that don't fully cover his eyes.
Yeah,
there's you can see out the bottom there.
Summers, sit up and take off those glasses.
I have a headache.
Surely every part of his peripheral vision not covered by those glasses should just be exploding with energy at all times.
Cyclops' brother is Havoc. So does Havoc's power come from the same dimension?
No, it's a different dimension.
But it's the both dimensions?
Yes. Havoc's powers have nothing to do with Cyclops' powers, but their powers don't work on each other due to a quirk of mutant biology that usually gives siblings complementary powers. Do you want me to make this whole thing a little bit more stupid?
It can get more stupid.
Yes. Cyclops' eye beams, his optic blasts, they produce no heat whatsoever. In actual fact, his eye beams are pure concussive force. Much akin to a water jet or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's how they cut through things. They don't cut through a laser, they cut through like a just high pressure water jet.
Quite.
Put it another way, he's punching people with his eyes. I'm not making this up, because a colloquial name for the universe where Cyclops' optic blasts come from is just the punch dimension. The upper limits of how powerful these lasers can be, or these optic blasts, isn't really known. They said he can using his visor, he can make it precise enough to just knock a can over on a table, or if he just lets loose, he can level a mountain. It's that's an awful lot of power to come from a guy's eyeballs.
Does the power dissipate over distance?
No.
So if he fired it into space, it would never
No,
stop?
it's crazy, yeah. He can completely just he can wipe out an entire city by just going looking from left to right.
So in X-Men Origins, when they have Cyclops appear, and he's already got sunglasses on, where the fuck did he get them?
I don't know. I want to know what doctor realised that those glasses will stop my eye blasts. It's so fucking
in order to test it, you'd have to be okay, open your eyes for a second. We're going to hold this ruby quartz in front of your eyes.
I don't know.
How many materials are blown up in that process?
Those movies don't make sense. How many moments in that franchise does Cyclops have his visor stolen and he just levels a building? But, Brad, as per usual, it can get a little bit dumber, because do you remember when I said that Havoc like Scott Summers' brother, is completely immune to his powers.
Yeah.
Scott Summers, Cyclops, is immune to his own powers as well, because otherwise his head would explode off his body every time he opened his eyeballs. Because think he's like outputting enough force to level buildings with his eyeballs, and he doesn't move. So it's said that his own body is completely and utterly immune to this force for some reason. And fans have theorised that Cyclops, if he really wanted to, could maybe fly by holding his own hands in front of his face, because his own body's immune to, like, you know, the concussive force, which should obviously work like a water jet and push him back. And I want to see that in a movie. Those movies, the X-Men movies, are really boring in the way they show these powers. 'Cause one of my favourite things with superhero movies is showing a superhero's power being used in an interesting way. Like, I love when you get the hero who has like a really obscure power that everyone thinks sucks, but because of their creativity, they become almost unbeatable. Like, there's that guy in Misfits, isn't there, who has control over milk.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the stupidest power ever until you ask, well, everyone drinks milk.
You think I'm a nobody?
So obviously you have power over everybody.
Yeah, but the guy who beats him, I'm lactose intolerant, bitch.
Well, I think in like Avatar, The Last Airbender,
Yeah.
you have like waterbenders. But someone realised, hang on, well, water is like 70% of the human body, so they learn how to control people's blood and thereby control other people using that power. Or you have like Toph in that series, who could like an earthbender and control earth. When she realised, well, metal is just earth, so I can control metal, and makes herself a walking suit of armour. I love shit like that. And then you have Cyclops, like, what do? Oh, I'd shoot the lasers, I'd do the pew-pew.
All the X-Men just find ways to fly with their powers.
Because it's the most useful ability. Because you have an entire extra axis of movement. Why doesn't Magneto flies a bit? But he should be flying everywhere. He should be flying. Do you know when he stands on just the hovering orb of like metal? That's how he should be travelling all the time, because that is intimidating as fuck. So why doesn't Professor X use his psychic powers to convince himself how to walk? It's stupid. Or get Jean Grey to hover his wheelchair around. It's so stupid. There's nothing more annoying to me than people who don't like when there's boring use of superpowers, like Cyclops. So we've established now that Cyclops sucks because he doesn't use his powers in an interesting way. So let's talk about examples of that. I love superpowers or like special abilities being used in unique and interesting ways. So what's your favourite example of that from like fiction recently?
I always like the one that you told me of Spider-Man being able to stick anything to anywhere.
Yeah,
because he keeps his mask on.
So to explain, people like obviously people think the little hairs on his hands. He has that all over his body. But he consciously only uses them in his hands to climb. But he can put it on any part of his body, including his face, and he uses it to keep his mask on. Which I think is really cool. The fact, like, that's why his mask never falls off, because he's got basically just these tiny spider heads that can stick to fucking anything, just keeping it on at all times. I think one of mine is Wolverine. We all know Wolverine, one of his powers, he's got a healing factor and an indestructible skeleton. And I think it's the game X-Men Origins Wolverine, where in one of the missions, a Sentinel is like, flying towards the Earth, like we need to stop it. So Wolverine goes, oh, I know what to do, and he jumps out of a plane. And he goes and he holds his hands out in front of him and turns himself into a human bullet, because I've got an indestructible skeleton, so I'm not going to. It's going to hurt, but it's not like I can break all my bones because they're covered in this indestructible metal. So he jumps out of a plane and turns himself into a human bullet by just diving headfirst, like with his claws out, into the Sentinel through its face. Crash lands, obviously he's injured, but then his healing factor fixes him and he walks it off like a boss. Which means, like, realistically, Wolverine can just be a human missile.
Well, we have seen that in a film. That's what the Terminator does in Genesis.
Yeah, like Wolverine could realistically do that at all times. Like, if he wanted to, he could just enter every fight by just jumping out of a plane in orbit and turning himself into just a fucking Mac blast out of Halo Wars.
While we're talking about things falling out of the sky, there was a bit in, is it Winter Soldier, where Captain America breaks his fall with his shield.
Yeah, because it dissipates all kinetic energy. I really like that as well. Or when he jumps out of the car and uses it to slide.
If it dissipates all energy, how does it rebound back to it?
We don't know. It's a special magic shield, Brad. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. Speaking of Captain America's shield, the moment in Avengers where obviously he blocks Mjolnir and it just sends out the huge sound wave that knocks everyone back. And then throughout the Avengers movies, they learn, oh wait, that's a really good way to just like, get people the fuck away from us. And they do it in like Age of Ultron, don't they? Like, just Captain America's there and you just go, oh god damn it. And he holds up his shield and just he gets Mjolnir thrown at him and everyone dies.
Well, they're excited.
We got that in Luke Cage. Iron Fist and Luke Cage put their powers together to create a shockwave.
Oh yeah, because like Luke Cage has got indestructible skin and Iron Fist is got like, a glowing.
I think they learned that when they were fighting, so Iron Fist punched Luke Cage's hands.
Yeah, to make
cause a ripple.
To make the shockwave, which is fucking awesome. And like, oh god, there's just another one is like Avengers again is Iron Man's suit when he gets overcharged to 300%, which does get a call back in Endgame. No, we can't spoil that, can we? Can we?